Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining, and also thanks everyone for joining online. So today Kaylee is going to be giving an overview of her journey from an intern many years ago when SAEON was still in Grahamstown across the road from SAIAB, and kind of talk through what she's been doing working with our research group, so MaRIP, the Marine Remote Imagery Platform, and how she's used this to really grow her expertise and grow what MaRIP does and help contribute to what SAIAB does. So the idea behind this was to try and highlight the early career scientist path within the Institute and the opportunities that you can make use of by working with us and staying around with us for a long time. Yeah, over to Kaylee. Thanks very much.
And thank you. Thank you everyone for joining online. Thank you for everyone being here in person. It's always much nicer to have people in person for these. Thank you, Albert. It's nice to have Albert in the room, which is, feels very special. All right. I just thought, I feel like sometimes I walk around this building and I feel like people look at me and go, who is this chicken? What did she do here? It's coming and going. And so I thought, let me just give a little bit of a background and a history. And I couldn't believe it myself when I thought, cheapers, it's actually been over a decade. It's been more than 10 years. So I'm actually giving away my age a little bit here. And like Anne said, we also just want to share a little bit about my career journey and hopefully inspire others, you know, and just to provide an idea of what is out there and what opportunities present themselves. Okay, so before I carry on, I made this mistake once. I did a whole presentation and right at the end, someone said, what is a BRUVs? And I thought, gosh. So for those in the room that don't know what a BRUVs is, because this is what we generally tend to talk about. So there it is. Sorry, and it's not a picture. So, this BRUV stands for Baited Remote Underwater Video System. BRUVs or stereo-BRUVs being two cameras, two stereo camera systems. These are basically baited cameras that we've put into the sea and they sit on the seafloor and we get to see all the amazing wildlife that lives in our oceans. Okay, so now you know what BRUVs are. So where did it begin? Can you believe it? In 2015, this is when I started as an intern, like many of you in this room, interns or students, as a DSTI-NRF intern based at SAEON, which was across the road. So not directly SAIAB, but I was working with Ant at the time. And this was my introduction to fieldwork, what it's like to be part of the MaRIP team, being part of like SAEON, SAIAB kind of fieldwork type of research. I made lifelong friends here at SAIAB and I got out into the field and I realized this is what I really like to do. Little did I know that I'd also sit at a computer and just analyze fish videos for most of the time. But so this was it, getting out to sea, getting the full experience. You can see back then, things were actually a little bit different on the boat. Hey, don't need no shoes, no life jackets. With trouble. I promise it's not like this anymore. A lot has changed. I think Angus would also freak out if he saw this. We are much more safety conscious these days. But anyway, this was my introduction to BRUVs and BRUVing. I promise I am wearing pants actually as well. I know that's a big jacket. I even got to drive the boat back then. Hey, Danny? Yeah. Do you ever think Ant would just be sitting back with his feet up on the boat, relaxing in the back? So anyway, these were the early BRUV days for me. And I realized this is what I really enjoyed. Getting out there, getting out to sea, getting my hands dirty, mashing up bait. So what does it really take to be a BRUVer? What is life like on the BRUV boat? So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an insight with this video into kind of a day on the BRUV boat. This was working out in Port St. John's. This is one of our field trips a good couple of years ago now, actually. We often get out and we have to do surf launches, going through the surf, getting wet, getting pounded by waves. I mean, but look at this beautiful scenery. We get to watch sunrises at sea. We get to be out on the ocean, a place that we love. And one of the perks is that we really get to see amazing places, truly beautiful areas along our coastline. I mean, is that Waterport Platform? Yeah. So getting to see that from the sea is really spectacular. And there we are nowadays, sitting at the back of the boat while other people drive us around. So normally starts with setting up the cameras, writing down our metadata, getting the cameras all set up, getting the settings sorted, making sure everything's ready to put our GoPros into our housings and to send the BRUVs down. So all the preparations needed for our day on the BRUVs, making sure our metadata are captured properly, all the little bits and pieces that are important for BRUVing. There we go. We stick it into our tailor-made camera housings, aluminum housings that are rated to go deep underwater, down to the bottom of the sea. So now we get ready. We normally have three or four BRUV systems on the boat. We have our 4 BRUVs. So we attach the bait on. We've got mashed up sardines in the bait canister. We stick the bait canister on and we're ready to go now. And so we're checking our bow lines at this point and making sure we've done everything properly. And we're going to get ready to put it overboard. Louis, our skipper, will take us up to the mark. We make sure that we're at the right place. All the conditions are fine. We've done all our checks and in the BRUV goes. Lots of throwing out all our rope out into the sea as the BRUV is getting lowered down onto the sea floor. So we can work anything between, with these kind of systems, they can go down to about 200 meters-ish. We normally work to about 150, 200 meters max with these deep BRUVs. I mean, that's deep to the bottom of the sea. So there it goes. We deploy one and they're attached with rope and a surface marker buoy. As you can see, it's not always fun and games out there. Sometimes the conditions are quite wild and we're getting thrown around on the boat. So it might look fun and we're always smiling, but it's hard work out there. And we spend long days at sea pulling ropes, you know, long hours out in the sun and on the boat. Yes, Danny's nodding at the back there. And then we go and pick the BRUVs up. So they stay at the bottom for an hour, 60 minutes, and then we go and retrieve them. We pick up the buoys, we pick up the rope, we hook the rope up. And it's pretty much just a long day of pulling ropes all day long. So we pick up our BRUVs. We're going to pull in the slack, hard work pulling, and now we do have our winch system for when we pick up, because they're quite heavy, these deep water BRUVs that we use. There, Anton's doing the hard, heavy lifting at the back there while we going to retrieve our BRUV system. But nowadays, Danny, myself, all of us girls, we get involved in the rope pulling action as well. There we go. So we do get our fair share of the heavy lifting out at sea too. That's pretty much what it is. We put them down onto the seafloor, they sit on the bottom, and they get to record all the wonderful life, and that's on the bottom of the sea. So there it is. You can see it's coming up now, having collected its BRUV deploy sample, and we bring it back up onto the boat. And then we just do that all day. We put them in, we lift them out. We put them in, we lift them out. Again, we put them in and we do lots of rope pulling, but then we get to see all the wonderful stuff that's down there. That's the most exciting part. We get back, we get to look through the cameras. Oh, what do we see? What cool things were down there? You know, where did it land? Is it on reef? Was it on sand? And then we go back and then we do it all again. So that's pretty much the day in the life of a BRUVer. But like I said, this is the fun part. This is the part we really live for and really get to enjoy. So that's, now you guys get a bit of a feel for what the MaRIP people are doing when they're not in SAIAB. When you can't find Danny, that's what she's doing. She's out there pulling ropes and out at sea and getting to see beautiful places. And that really is the privilege of our work. So yeah, so that's it. So that's MaRIP, essentially. Obviously, it's a lot more to it than just the field work. That's a small component, or actually a large component of it. Technically, just Ant there kind of on his own, it's really MaRIP, and then obviously his team of minions and data managers and postdocs and technicians and makeup, and our PhD students, obviously all our students. That's kind of the very small MaRIP team. But essentially, it's a platform that provides equipment and technical expertise to support research, to support other people to do their research as well. And we use a whole variety of different visual imagery, so remote imagery, visual imagery equipment types. So not just the BRUVs, but also diver-operated cameras, remotely operated vehicles, drop cameras, any kind of visual imagery technology. That's kind of what MaRIP is all about. And you can see we work throughout South Africa. So we've got BRUV deployments throughout South Africa, but not only that, we have quite a wide spatial footprint across the whole of the Western Indian Ocean, collaborating with lots of cool organizations working in the Western Indian Ocean. Look at that. Okay, that's a lot, thousands and thousands of visual imagery that we have collected over the years. So yeah, very cool getting to work and collaborate, train, build capacity in the region to do this kind of work and to collect and get to see all the fantastic things down there, sharks and rays and fish and all the super cool things. I mean, and these are the types of questions that we're trying to answer. What does it look like? Is it actually quite barren? And what are our ecosystems look like? Are they healthy? Are they getting fished out? Do we see lots of fish? Is it teeming with life like this? Or, you know, is it maybe starting to look a little bit degraded? So, and also now more recently, what's lurking in the deep? So we're starting to get deeper now with our new stereo-BRUV landers, which that's for another talk. So these are types of questions that we're trying to answer. So just to give you a bit of an idea, a lot of the stuff is just foundational. So what is there? We often are surveying in places that we've never been before. So we're still trying to just say, okay, what species are there? What ecosystems are there? What condition are they in? Where do they occur? What are their distribution patterns? How are they changing? Why are they changing? Is it because of us? Is it because of climate change? Is it because of fishing? Is it just natural changes? We're still trying to understand these fundamental ecological questions and how we can mitigate these impacts or threats, or how we can protect and conserve these ecosystems. We need to know what's there in order to be able to effectively conserve and protect them. So that's kind of what we're trying to do a lot of the time. Most of our work is done working in and around our marine protected areas. So these are our 41 marine protected areas in South Africa, but also in the West Indian Ocean, we do a lot of work in the NPAs that are there. And then, like I said, a lot of the work we do is also supporting others. We are a platform provisioning service, essentially, as well, collaborating with other organizations and other institutions, working with our NPA managers, working with Izimbelo, Isimangaliso, Cape Nature, supporting their research in these NPAs in order to make sure that they are effective and they're doing what they're meant to be doing. There. Cool, so this kind of starts, I've got a couple of eras that I talk about now in my journey. So this kind of kicked off my PhD era. Earlier, I don't know if you saw, I think I called the student era, because that was when I was an intern, and I kind of came to Grahamstown thinking I was a rodent student at that point. I'm a bit more mature now. So PhD era, 2016 to 2020. So my internship was in 2015. I finished that, and I thought, okay, cool, I like this BRUV thing. I want to do this. I want to go out to sea. I want to carry on doing this kind of work, and I want to answer some of those questions. So I took on a PhD with Ant as my PhD supervisor here at SAEON, and with Professor Mandy Lombard at NMU, and also Kiri Sink at SANBI. So I had a really cool PhD team, which I was very grateful for. And I did all the PhD things, went to conferences, did my field work, but I was based in KZN. I'll show you my sites now. So that's why I also wasn't around a lot. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritties of my PhD, so that can be for another talk. I'm not going to touch on a lot of the science today. I've got one or two graphs for you guys, but essentially, the National Biodiversity Assessment, which is conducted by SANBI, basically has a national condition layer, South African condition map, which is based on pressures. It's basically looking at cumulative pressures that have been mapped, fishing, shipping, or whatever it is. We wanted to kind of test this theory that those pressure maps are used as a proxy for conditions. So where we expect high pressure, where we have high pressures, we expect condition to be poor. And where there are low pressures, we expect the condition of the ecosystems and the life at sea to be in good condition. So basically, in a nutshell, my PhD was to kind of test that assumption and to test what is the actual condition of rocky reef ecosystems. That was our study area of choice. And how do these in situ condition assessments compare with pressure-based assessments that were conducted by the National Biodiversity Assessment? So it's kind of what we did. If you want to read my thesis, I can share it with you. We collected fish and benthic community data, which is really nice. I also actually brought in the forgotten inverts, all the things that are growing on the reef, which we see in our BRUVs, and they often get forgotten about because we mostly focus on fish. But I got to bring in the invertebrate and benthic community data as well, which I really liked and which I thought was very cool. So off we went to the east coast of South Africa. That was my study area. So these were my main sampling localities. So I was based in Durban for most of this. Again, why I wasn't often at SAIAB, but why you probably saw me just coming and going every so often. So I was in Durban. We worked off Pakisa, and also came up with Hesperus, or was it Honkana at the time, our other old boats. And we did all our BRUVs. I think we collected about 140 or 160 stereo-BRUV samples. And then, don't pay too much attention to this graph, but I just want to show that I did actually do some science, and I did do some stats and things for my PhD. But essentially, this was now starting to look at the correlation between these condition indicators and the pressure-based indicators, how they correlated, how well they kind of spoke to each other. Is this proxy true? Like, can we use these pressure-based maps as a proxy for ecosystem condition based on these in situ ecological data? So we did it with the fish, with the benthic invertebrates, and then it's as some combined indicators there at the bottom. So that was PhD. Okay, I did actually put another map in here. And then, yeah, so we basically were trying to look at then, okay, what proportion, so if we look at the NBA data, the pressure-based data, what proportion of those ecosystems were either in a natural state or were they very severely degraded or modified? And then did the condition, our ecological conditions, show the same pattern? Did we kind of see the same patterns when we compared them? So generally, they did, but there was a lot of fine scale variability, and in some areas they didn't quite match up. So when you start to dig a little bit deeper and look at a fine scale, obviously the MBA is very coarse, very broad. It kind of showed a general pattern, but there were a lot of fine scale differences actually between them. So that was the PhD era. Now, at the end of my PhD, I was sitting in Durban, writing up, sitting every day, trying to write my thesis. And then my husband, who's here in the room now, decided to get a job in Seychelles. He applied for a job, got the job, and now this was 2019, just before COVID. And off we went to Seychelles. So that was the Seychelles era. I had to ask my supervisors very nicely if I can go finish writing up my PhD. I thought if I'm just sitting in Durban, why not go to the tropical paradise island of Seychelles and go finish writing my PhD there? So why not? So there we were. We jetted off to Seychelles. It was meant to be about 2, 3, maybe 4 years. 6.5 years later, we just came back last year. So we had a really cool, amazing experience, opportunity to be there. And what was really nice, and I'll kind of show you, is that I didn't ever lose my ties with SAIAB and with South Africa, which I thought for me was, I was strategically trying to do that so that I knew I always wanted to come back and still continue to work in South Africa. So for those of you that don't know, there is the Seychelles, tiny little island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, all the way, yeah, just basically sitting in the middle of the sea. And there we were, there's the island of Mahe, the main island of Mahe, and we lived on the east coast there in a small little place in a very beautiful part of the world, which we were very lucky to do. So what happened in Seychelles? So during this era, essentially 2019 to 2025, so 6 years, so quite a long time, kind of took MaRIP to Seychelles, which was quite cool. So there were some BRUV projects that had been going on and had been to Aldabra before, and there were a lot of people doing some mono BRUV, some single camera BRUV work in Seychelles. So we thought, hey, let's take some stereo BRUVs across. And with Stu being at the University of Seychelles there, he was lecturing, and we had quite a nice student group and a lot of cool research happening there at the time. We thought, well, let's take MaRIP there and start doing some more stereo BRUVs work, can do some training, can do some, getting students involved and really trying to grow this regional network. So we did a lot of cool things in that time. Stu was also instrumental in that, we'd loaned some equipment from SAIAB. We had a really nice MOU agreement in place. We set up a formal collaboration with SAIAB and with the University of Seychelles and some other organizations there. And we really got a nice platform kind of growing in Seychelles as well. When I eventually finished my PhD and submitted in 2020, then I thought, okay, well, now what? I have to be a scientist now. So I've started applying for my own grants, and I was actually very proud to get our own project that Stu and I got in Seychelles. That was mostly about building capacity to do this kind of work. So building capacity in the region and actually collecting some stereo BRUVs from the Seychelles marine protected area. So doing very similar work to what we were doing here and kind of just replicating it now, in another Western Indian Ocean country. So off we went. So we got this funding from the CEPF, an international grant that we applied for, just from a call that we saw. And we set out, so these are a couple of the marine protected areas in Seychelles, and we set out and we collected 130 stereo BRUV samples. So getting out there again, doing very similar work. We got boats and fishing boats and borrowed boats from this person and that person and got out there and eventually did all our field work, Stu mostly. Getting to see, again, some amazing things. This footage that we get to see and the privilege to be able to actually see what's down there, I think is a very cool part of the job. We got to supervise some students. We had some honors students there at the university, getting them involved in BRUVs. And now some of those data are actually starting to come out. So just to touch on that very quickly, this was one of our honors students, Loic. One of his projects looked at specifically the jobfish in Creole Zob Green, I think. So they're very into their Creole names there, and the way that they name the fish there in Seychelles, just quite cool. So we're starting to see some nice patterns with the jobs and their size. So these data are now just starting to come out. We've had lots of people analyzing, training students how to do video annotation, analyzing the BRUVs footage. So this is going to be published soon. And then what was really cool is we actually developed and formalized the Seychelles National BRUVs Network, which was really cool, actually formalizing this network, bringing everyone together. And we actually managed to then collate a national scale synthesis of BRUVs work from people working all over Seychelles. We had people working in the outer islands, other organizations working in the inner islands, and we got to bring all of this together in a national BRUVs collaboration, which was really exciting. And we managed to pull out the shark and ray data from those BRUVs deployments. I think we had nearly 600 deployments in total, and we just submitted this paper to SHARK, to RET's special edition in endangered species research, and we literally submitted that on Sunday night, this paper, so we're holding thumbs for that. So that was a really cool win for us, was really bringing everyone together, having a really big collated data set to get some cool work out for. And our student Amelia got to present that work at the Shark and Ray Symposium. For anyone who was there, you would have seen our Seychelles student who was there, which we also got her to do, which was also super cool. So yeah, some really nice stuff coming out of our time there in Seychelles, and still just keeping those ties with SAIAB and MaRIP and those collaborations in place. So what we really found was during this time was 10 minutes left. Okay. We really found the importance of the people element of our work, getting out there, doing the training, hosting workshops, getting students involved. Stu even taught them how to braai in Seychelles. So I really found the value of, this engagement, the stakeholder engagement, getting out there, showing people what we do, showing people the work that we did, or the work that we do, and getting to show all our amazing imagery that we collect and the stuff that we really live for, getting to see what's in the ocean and what's happening out there. So we did a lot of stakeholder engagement, lots of workshops, lots of training, and that's also a lot of what I do nowadays as well. A lot of workshops, training, getting people involved, and also just kind of getting MaRIP's name out there and showing them what we do, and then also how we use this work and how these data can be used. So that was Seychelles. So during my whole time at Seychelles, I still did lots and other bits and pieces of work. So I'm just going to touch on this very briefly. I call this the Mandy era. So Professor Mandy Lombard, after my PhD, I had to have a little bit of a break from ANT. I think I went to now work with Mandy for a little bit. It was kind of technically my first job, I guess. I was employed as like a research assistant, stakeholder liaison, whatever they called it. I don't even know, but Mandy and her team at NMU had a consultancy, a contract with UNEP and WIOMSA, which was quite nice for me, a little bit of a change of scenery. It was all during COVID, so it was perfect. It was all remote working, and I got to just sit in Seychelles and do this job and sit at my computer and do some literature reviews, etc. So it was quite nice. I got to have some more high-level kind of picture stuff, got to look at, dealing with policymakers and government representatives, and I got to lead the situational report, situational assessment for this report. So a lot of reading of papers and reports and digging through old literature, basically trying to develop a marine spatial planning strategy for the WEO, which was also quite a cool project, and it was something nice, and I could kind of start to see where our biological data can really feed into this bigger picture kind of stuff, these high level processes. So I did that for a little bit. Then I had the Kerry era. So also one of my PhD supervisors. So I went and had a stint with all of them afterwards. And I did a postdoc, which was funded by a European agency. And they called it the Mission Atlantic Project. It was like a multi-year, multi-institutional country, big program funded by an EU organization. And that was also quite nice because it was quite different. I got a different feel for things. I was working in a different with different data sets and different parts of the, more of like the Atlantic system, where I was always Indian Ocean, East Coast, Western Indian Ocean, tropical kind of stuff. So that was really nice. But what was really cool is that I got to actually go to Germany, and I spent a month there through an exchange program funded through this program. I got to work with them, and the work that I did here kind of very similar to the work that I did with my PhD, looking at indicators, looking at how do we assess ecosystem condition, and looking at trends and tipping points. And what's also cool is that we did also publish this paper. This was one of my most recent papers, but just to show that I kept those collaborations with my German colleagues here that I met, back in 2022, I think it was when I was there. We kept those collaborations. I've kept those ties together. A lot of this I'm realizing is building these relationships, building these partnerships and with people and growing your network over the years. And now we finally managed to publish a paper with them, which is also really cool. So that was 2021, 2023. And just quickly, I know I'm running out of time. In the middle of this, an opportunity came up to maybe go to the Maldives. So this whole time, I'm kind of left-handed and I'm with Kiri and Mandy and other people, but I kind of still always had my fingers in the MaRIP pies, and I jumped on a field trip every now and then when I could. And Anne said, we're going to the Maldives, there's a big expedition, can you go? So I had to essentially take an unpaid leave for 5 weeks out of my postdoc. But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to say yes. You got to put your hand up for these things. You've got to take those opportunities. Sometimes you're going to work for free, but it's all about building your CV, building that experience, getting out there, making those connections, making those collaborations. And it pulls off because at the end of the day, I'm still working with those people. I've made amazing contacts and amazing networks, and I still get opportunities now from decisions that I made back then when I thought I was being crazy. But I got to go to the Maldives. This is our Maldives team, and there's our little SAIAB contingency and hiding at the back as usual. And there's Ryan Palmer there. And we got to do an amazing expedition, and one of the major career highlights for me during this trip, so we did our BRUVs, and we also had our deep water landers that we used for the first time, our acoustic release BRUVs that can now go down to 900 meters. So we're doing some really cool deep sea work now, and I'll do another presentation on that another time. But one of the highlights was that I got to go in a submarine. Okay, you call it a submersible, but submarine sounds cooler. But so there we go. I mean, we got to go down to like hundreds and hundreds of meters in a submersible. I mean, it was the most incredible experience that I've ever had. That to me, I thought I've made it now. Like, that was super, super cool. So there's Ryan and I got to go in one, and then I got to go, I think one at a time, and to show you some amazing pictures that we had a whole media team on board with us. So, and obviously it's a competition to see who can go the deepest. So I got to go to 333 meters, 1,000 feet. I know. This is not AI generated, this is real. But Anne beat me, I think. I think they went to like 500. I was very upset about that. But there's me in the submersible underwater. So we had a diver in the shallows, and then we had the other submersibles that would come and find us. But I mean, look at these incredible pictures, and we got to see the most amazing life. That deep, being in a submersible underwater. I actually saw a thresher shark in the distance on my dive, which was incredible, and a tiger shark. So cool. So yeah, I'll just leave it there for a second. So yeah, so it just shows, because I put my hand up. I said, yes, pick me. This is why I'm also never here, because I say yes to everything. I say yes to too many things, actually. But and then yeah, just to kind of show you now with our deep water landers. So this is some of the footage that we got from Maldives. Some of the really cool stuff, and I didn't put the depths in here, unfortunately, this is an old video, but some of the really cool things we're starting to see from like the super deep parts of the ocean now. 800, 900, 1,000 meters now underwater. Starting to see what's there. We're starting to see these amazing, unique species. I think this tiger shark we saw at about 300 meters. And then a very rare bramble shark. Like, I think 800 meters underwater. 900, we saw them. All these weird and wonderful things in the deep, these cusk eels and cutthroat eels. I don't really know what they are, but okay, yeah, amazing. And that's what we get so excited about. We send these things down and they come back up, and then we get to look at the footage. So that's it. Okay, I'm nearing the end. So this is it now. Back in South Africa era. So here we are. We're back in Grahamstown for now. Who knows where I'm going to be in a couple of months' time. I'll still be coming and going probably through these hallways. But I'm now with SAIAB more permanently. I've got a 3-year contract now as a Research Infrastructure Professionals Program postdoc. It's quite a mouthful. And here we are. We're getting to do the same kind of work that we do. We're doing a lot more deep sea research now with our deep water landers, which is very exciting. Still getting to see amazing things, still getting to see amazing wildlife. We're starting to move into the super deep now with all those new technologies that they're developing, and with our coral, as it's affectionately known as, our new 3,500 meter rated lander, which is very exciting. So we're starting to do a lot more work. We're starting to still carrying on doing workshops, doing training, getting people involved, you know, stakeholder engagement and all of that stuff. So we kind of still, yeah, getting out there, doing our thing pretty much. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And one thing that I did realize as I was digging through all my photos to make this presentation is that there are a lot of boat selfies that I have in the state, Danny. Mostly with Danny a lot of the time when she is sleeping in. And then I realized there were no photos of Ant in a lot of these. So anyway, I found one. Thank you for listening, and while we do questions, I'll just put this video on so you guys can see Danny in action as well.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Kaylee. Yeah, it's cool to see what you've been up to. I don't think I can keep track of you. Yeah, do you have any questions?
Nothing online yet. Okay. Very people online. Okay, nice. Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thank you for your interesting presentation. I'm just curious. You said the furthest you've gone is 330 meters down.
That was me personally in the submersible.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, that was only for that trip in the submarines. But our BRUVs now, with our working off the rubber duck boat, we generally work to like not much deeper than 200 meters with our BRUVs. But our deep water lander BRUVs now, our acoustic release ones, those can work down to about 900 meters, 1,000 meters. And with the new one that I just showed you now on that last picture, that can go down to 3,500 meters.
Oh. Okay.
Yes, with the cameras, with the beta, with the BRUVs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to ask: is there a certain protocol you're telling me about the lander that is certified to go to certain deep levels?
Yes.
What determines that? I mean, in terms of.
So
Yeah.
it's the housings and the equipment that the cameras sit in and the lights and all that. So all of those get built so that they are tailor-made, so that they are custom built, so that they can essentially tolerate those depths and pressures and temperatures, mostly the pressure, I guess. So it's the equipment itself that gets built so that it's can handle those kind of pressures and go down to that deep. Yeah.
Thank you.
The pressures get kind of extreme. We used to sometimes send down polystyrene cuts, color them, and you send them down, and they'll come back the size. Those get squished.
No other questions? Yes.
What other sampling do you do when you send the BRUVs down? Do you collect any water samples or anything like that?
It depends on the projects. We mostly just have the cameras, but then we do have other sensors on there, so we get temperature, depth, and light from the BRUVs. But we have had where we put Niskin bottles to get eDNA water samples on the landers. What else have we put on the BRUVs aside from Niskin?
No, that's about it.
Yeah.
You can put hydrophones on them as well if you want to have listening stations on them, but they're so short term, it's just an hour, but it's opportunistic, I guess. And then you can do other sampling alongside it, but most of the time we're trying to get as many BRUVs as possible, so there's no time to do anything else.
So in the really deep stuff, you no longer mush up the thing, you just strap a whole fish on. Is there a reason for that?
It depends. So no, we do still use the sardines and we do mash them up normally,
Yeah.
but now, so in certain places you can't actually get anchovies and sardines, and then we tend to use like fish like bonito or like tuna type fish, and which we can readily get like when we're in Seychelles especially. And then we would just kind of also just chop it up. But then, especially with the landers, which were there for down, they actually stay down the bottom for like 5 hours. So then we put the head on as like an extra, just to have extra attractant. And the sharks actually quite like the heads quite a lot. And we found it, well, that's also when we lost bait cans, and then they like to pull the heads off and swim away with our bait lids and things. But yeah, so we do use sardines when we can, though, still. So it just depends. Yes.
And have you ever seen a shark eat one of the other things that are feeding off the canister?
None of that is true. It does happen sometimes.
Okay.
We have seen some really cool things though, like the most amazing thing. I don't know, like an octopus punching fish, and like, I don't know, a lot of like chasing and things going on. And what other cool things do we normally see? Like funny stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of interactions you see, a lot of attempts at eating other things, but it doesn't often work out well.
And I don't know if it was just our eyes, but then one with the big bramble shark in the landers. I'm convinced we saw the eel swim through its mouth and then come out of its gills at the end. So like,
Yeah, you see a lot of cool behaviors, a lot of feeding behaviors that you don't normally see. So there's a lot of other information in the videos.
a lot of sharks trying to take bait canisters, basically tigers ripping off. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah. I was teasing.
tiger sharks are like to attack our boys on the surface every now and then too.
Absolutely.
They're just curious. Sorry, I know it's Shark Awareness Day. We're trying to paint a nice, friendly picture of life sharks, but yeah, the sharks can be quite entertaining. Lots of things they are. We've seen some really cool things. Interesting. The crabs are hilarious. I find like those big crabs at the bottom. They just do such funny things. I think also you sit and watch videos for hours on end. You start to also just go crazy and find it always funny.
And anything entertaining.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for the nice presentation. Very cool pictures there and videos. I imagine when you actually drop a lot of these landlets in some of these cases, you definitely encounter species that you have probably no idea what they are. So my question is to how are you now trying to address that? Because in terms of actually sorting out some of the diversity and understanding the taxonomy of all these things, are there any plans of you see it and try and get specimens from all the way that you've like?
Not so. It's a good question. So not specimens necessarily. So like we often have. So often what happens is that we collect the data a lot of the time, and then we don't end up sitting and analyzing it actually, because it can be for other projects and the other students. So they will be the ones that we either have to now go and sit with the experts, and we get often external people in like Dave Ebbett, or they can come and help us identify some of the sharks and rays and stuff. So we get taxonomists to maybe help us with our IDing, but we don't get specimens.
We do have small traps.
Oh, for the inverts.
Yeah, so the deep stuff, but it's mostly targeting inverts, but small fish as well. It's not easy to collect those specimens, so we rely on, for example, the Nansen trawls, and they classify the species, and then those experts. But yeah, most of it's just visual, and then we do get stuck. Even in the shallower depths, there's small wrasses and stuff that are almost impossible to identify by eye. They look like they're very distinct, but you can't see them in the books anywhere, so you kind of get stuck. But yeah, so there's. But yeah, we're still very dependent on physical classification prior to us trying to identify them visually.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what half these things are anymore.
I'll do the question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Kaylee. Well done.
Thanks.
We're missing out here. Just on the African continent, are there any other sort of institutions that have got similar capabilities to what we have? That's the first thing. And I saw the coverage that you guys have done, mostly out of office and gathering all this information, and the time of processing all this big data to make it make sense. I'm just looking at the challenges that we face and what we need to do to speed up the processing of all this information. Yeah, are we developing capacity elsewhere, or is only within SAIAB?
It's a good question, and I think that's also a lot of what I've noticed and what we've noticed and what we're trying to do, and is building that capacity. And there's definitely a huge need for it. So especially with the BRUVs, and there's no one else really that has what MaRIP has to offer. So we see a lot of BRUVs work happening out there, but a lot of the time it's still people with minimal resources and like equipment infrastructure, so they can easily build a mono BRUV. It's easy to build a mono BRUV, and then they'll do manual BRUVing. But as soon as you want to start going deeper, or then when it comes to having a winch and having a boat that can operate a winch, and then getting really deep, there's no one that really has that kind of capacity except for the big ships. Those are all opportunistic and collaborating with. Yeah, exactly. European or other Western nations and things. So I can see when I go out there and I do these workshops and stuff, everyone is super keen and they're starting to do some BRUVs work, but it's all quite still rudimentary and working off a fishing boat where they can and doing it manually, and so they can't get very deep, and so it's still quite limited. So there's a lot of like equipment, infrastructure, like technical skills, or just infrastructure, I think, support needed. And then obviously with the data processing, but AI is going to start helping us a lot more with that. That's obviously been a big bottleneck and a big challenge. It's the time it takes to sit and then process all of those videos. And yeah, and I can still also, even just now, engaging with other organizations in the WEO, like they still are just wanting help with video annotation and fish IDs, identifying, being able to process their BRUV. So there is a lot of work still needing to happen in that space. And and they want it. They're keen and they're looking for support.
Yeah. So the nice thing about BRUVs is that they are a very simple tool. So anybody can drop it off the edge of a boat, and you can use any boat. So it's a very accessible tool to use to do standardized fish surveys. And it collects robust data. And there's global standards. So everything you do all feeds into big global data sets. That all are aligned with goose and central ocean variables. So it's a really easy field to get into and get data that's will be able to answer your questions. So it's it's just making sure that there's the training events, opportunities to provide equipment, and provide whatever support. So yeah, definitely MaRIP provides a lot of support outside South Africa and within South Africa. And it's mostly that if you compare us, you're comparing us to the Australians, which are probably bigger than us in terms of the research footprint and scale, but nothing within the African continent along these lines. So it's we provide there are a lot of benefits coming out of MaRIP and the investment in MaRIP to national and regional partners. Any other questions? Yeah.
So why do you use stereo? Because you have to mix the two images in.
Yeah, so the stereo allows us then, so the cameras can get calibrated, and we can get very precise lens measurements. And then we're talking biomass
So you
and
can
size.
get like a
Yes.
size
Yeah.
measurement.
So I didn't mention that before. It's very important. So we need those lens measurements and those biomass indicators, because those are the indicators that are telling us, the real stories of what's happening out there and other. So that information is very useful, and people are also realizing that they need to do that jump from mono to stereo-BRUVs, but then it does come with those extra costs and equipment needs and things. It's not to get a stereo-BRUV built now, and you have to have a calibration cube, and you also have to have the software to analyze those videos properly and things. So yeah,
there's growing interest around the world in terms of using stereo-BRUV data for fisheries stock assessments. So the Australians are doing it, our fisheries department are taking up all the data to use it for their stock assessments. So it's gone from a stage of just biodiversity data and abundance and community analysis to now being something that's seen by management authorities as this really useful tool that can provide data that they don't have access to anymore for supporting fisheries management and sustainable fisheries management. Because of the South data, essentially. That's the only reason why they see value in it. Awesome. No questions online.
I know. Okay, what's going on online, everyone? They're sleeping, they're working.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Kaylee, for that talk. It was very.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.